Good afternoon. We begin at City Hall, where your tax dollars are on the agenda. The Budget Committee is reviewing the proposed spending plan for 2025.
Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkiw will be among those attending, defending the proposed increase to police funding. CTV's Natalie Johnson is live at City Hall with the latest. Natalie.
That's right, Nathan. It will be all eyes on the police budget here at City Hall this afternoon as councillors scrutinize exactly how much more money they are asking for and where exactly that money will be spent within the service. This year, the police are asking for an additional $46 million. That is about 4% more than last year for a number of service improvements, including frontline support. The police pointing out that they are now providing security in more than 2,000 events and protests a year, that crime is up, including hate crimes, shootings and firearm discharges and homicides, and that those crime rates, along with call volumes and caseloads, are increasing faster than resourcing. Now, the service does have a multi-year hiring plan. The 2025 proposed budget includes 109 net new uniformed positions. Here's more from members of the Budget Committee this morning.
We know that per capita, Toronto Police is underserviced, and they've been asking for more officers for a long time. And the allocated funds that is going to be given to them, hopefully, if this budget goes through, is really to really put more boots on the ground, and so that we have more people in our community doing neighborhood policing.
It means that we can commit for 3 years to making sure that we have the officers we need, to make sure that in every community there are neighborhood community officers and primary response units, lowering response times. And that is something that we've heard loud and clear across the city.
And Budget Chief Shelley Carroll, who you just heard there, was also recently named the new chair of the Toronto Police Services Board. She and other members of the Budget Committee will be asking the chief this afternoon what kind of efficiencies have been found within the service. Of course, this all comes at a very high cost. The police budget, always one of the top lines within the city budget. And we know that as it stands now, there is a 6.9% property tax hike that is on the table, still to be approved by council, that goes toward paying for the increases to the police budget and all the other asks of City Hall. Reporting live, I'm Natalie Johnson. Back to you.
Thank you, Natalie. And still ahead, a stumbling block in the ceasefire deal. Israel is delayed today's meeting of the country's security cabinet and government aimed at finalizing the Gaza ceasefire hostage release agreement. We'll have the update on the situation.
A firefighter was injured battling a large house fire in Hamilton early this morning. Fire crews were called to the home on County Club Drive around 12:30 a.m. When they arrived, they found flames coming through the roof of the garage. Now, crews tried to enter the home because there were reports there may be people inside, but the smoke and flames were too heavy. One firefighter sustained burns to his arms and was taken to hospital. The homeowners were in fact not home, and everyone has been accounted for.
The fire then broke through the roof. We had an exposure to the property to the south, number 160. Firefighters quickly got into that home. We had a fire in the attic. Caused by the exposure. The fire was quickly knocked down, and we also had a gas line that was severed at the side of the house, which then led to some additional involvement on the side.
The cause and origin of the fire is under investigation.
2 people have been injured in a head-on crash near Peterborough. This happened on Highway 7 at Hayes Road. Kawartha Lakes OPP say one person was airlifted to a trauma center in Toronto. The cause of the collision remains under investigation.
We're learning more about the shooting in the city last May that made headlines around the world when a security guard working outside the home of rapper Drake was struck by a bullet fired from a passing car.
So far, no arrests have been made, but Drake's legal team is now offering more insight into the incident. CTV's Scott Lightfoot is live in studio with more. Scott, tell us more on these details and the revelations.
Well, Michelle, these details are not coming from the police investigation into that shooting. They're coming from a civil lawsuit that Drake has filed against his own label, alleging that their promotion of a song by another rapper led to this violent incident. According to an 81-page lawsuit filed in a New York court yesterday, Drake was inside his Bridle Path mansion at the time of a shooting outside last May. It's a detail that hadn't been confirmed by Toronto police, and one of many related to the shooting that were, to this point, not public knowledge. Among them, Drake's lawyers allege a group of armed assailants drove up to Drake's home in the early morning hours of May 7th and shouted a swear word before at least one of those occupants opened fire. According to the document, one bullet hit the front door of the home, while another hit a security guard, who the filing says is also a friend of the rappers. The suit alleges that Drake and friends scrambled to keep that man alive as they waited for an ambulance by applying pressure to his wound with towels. The filing also says the ambulance took nearly 30 minutes to arrive.
They not like us.
The lawsuit was filed against Universal Music Group, alleging the company had defamed the Toronto-born rapper when it promoted the Kendrick Lamar diss track, Not Like Us. The lawsuit alleges that Universal conspired to artificially inflate the song on Spotify using financial incentives to third parties to stream the song, bots, and other tactics. The lawsuit says the legal action is not about the artist, but rather the company that published and promoted the song, which it says includes false allegations of pedophilia and calls for, quote, violent retribution. The lawsuit alleges the song led to the incident. None of the allegations have been tested in court. Both Drake and Lamar are signed to the Universal Music Group, but work under different divisions.
Now, Universal Music Group has denied the allegations in a statement saying not only are these claims untrue, but the notion that we would seek to harm the reputation of any artist, let alone Drake, is illogical. The statement goes on to say, we have invested massively in his music, and our employees around the world have worked tirelessly for many years to help him achieve historic commercial and personal financial success. Michelle?
Thank you, Scott. New charges have been laid in an alleged ticket scam targeting people who wanted to attend one of Taylor Swift's sold-out concerts in Toronto last fall. Police previously stated more than 24 people had lost more than $70,000 buying tickets that did not exist from a seller on Facebook Marketplace. They noted there are likely more victims. Well, now 44-year-old Denise Teasor of Burlington is facing 8 additional charges, including fraud and possession of property obtained by crime. 56-year-old David Lloyd Blake of Burlington is also charged with 19 counts of possession of property obtained by crime over $5,000.
Provincial regulators are moving to suspend a Toronto nightclub's liquor license after an intoxicated patron was found dead. The Alcohol and Gaming Commission issued the proposed suspension against Mr. Wolf nightclub on Queen Street West. Officials are alleging a 19-year-old patron was overserved the night of May 25th, and they say he showed visible signs of intoxication, and staff did not intervene. He later went up an off-limit staircase and was found dead with a blood alcohol more than twice the legal driving limit. The provincial agency says police have also laid charges that are now in front of the courts. And a Brampton teenager arrested in a violent home invasion in Vaughan is now also charged in a shooting in London last month. 18-year-old Daniil Josiah Levy-Porter is facing a string of charges. It's in relation to a January 6th home invasion near Dufferin and Major Mackenzie that left a resident with a gunshot wound. Now police allege he was involved in an incident outside London's Victoria Hospital. They say a pickup truck crashed into a pillar there on December 14th and shots were fired, hitting the vehicle and building. Investigators believe the victim and suspect were involved in a fight at a different location minutes earlier. They've now charged Daniil Josiah Levy-Porter with attempting to commit murder using a gun.
Ontario Provincial Police have launched a new tool to help monitor suspects on bail for firearms-related offences.
Gun crimes are some of the most dangerous of all, and these offenders must comply with their court-ordered conditions. This is not optional.
The new tool is called the Provincial Bail Compliance Dashboard. It compiles map-based and near real-time information about high-risk offenders who are out on bail. The OPP says that means frontline officers can proactively respond to bail violations with more awareness of the situation at hand.
Our goal is for every officer to have increased situational awareness regarding those on bail for firearms-related offenses, to further enhance their ability to keep the public and themselves safe.
The monitoring dashboard was first started by Toronto Police back in 2018. It's now also in use in York, Peel, and Guelph, and by provincial police. But it's open to all municipal and First Nation police services who'd like to participate.
We have more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. We had some flurries this morning. The cold air is still here, so dress for it. Temps will go up tomorrow, but eventually they will drop drastically. Lindsay Morrison's here with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay.
Nathan, lots going on in the weather department, but let's start with today. It was a bit of a snowy morning commute for many, thanks to this weak system moving through. Very fine flurries, but likely resulted in many people using a little extra windshield washer fluid. As you can see, there's a bit of lake enhancement happening to the east of Durham region and around Niagara. Those are a couple of the communities that are under a winter weather travel advisory. A little more in the way of snowfall accumulation expected there. Couple of centimeters for us here locally. Now winds, I want to point out that in many communities we're now tapping into a bit more of a southwesterly wind. That is going to contribute to our warm up. Today we are holding steady at around -4 degrees. We're really not going to cool down all that much as we make our way into tonight. And then it's quite mild for tomorrow and at least part of Saturday. We're going to take you through a rather interesting weekend weather forecast coming up. For now though, Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. A nonprofit is sounding the alarm over what it says is severe funding shortfalls impacting people with developmental disabilities.
Community Living Toronto says more than 52,000 are stuck on waiting lists for critical supports and services. CTV's Siobhan Morris is live with the latest on the situation. Siobhan.
Well, we're talking a funding gap here of billions of dollars to offer a range of supports, everything from housing to help navigating a bank account, a grocery store trip, and balancing a budget. Advocates say without this kind of help, people with disabilities aren't able to live full lives and lives with dignity. They're grateful for a funding increase of 3% last year, but they say stopgaps and inconsistent small increases is no way to fund services as important as these.
We are not a statistic, we are people. Even though we have a disability, there is nothing wrong with us. We can still do normal things, but sometimes we need a little help.
People with intellectual and developmental disabilities historically haven't been heard. Their voices haven't been heard, but also haven't been valued. And so I think when people are devalued in our society, they don't attract attention, they don't attract support, they don't attract funding. And that's been our history, but it needs to change.
Advocates would like to see something like what we saw with ODSP rates. Those are tied to the rate of inflation in terms of increases. They're not under any illusions that this will all change in an upcoming budget expected this spring, but they say there needs to be a discussion more long-term about how to fund these important services. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan Morris. Back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. The province has announced it's investing nearly $500 million to refurbish 181 GO train coaches. The coaches will feature new seating, doors, flooring, walls, and ceilings. They will also have upgraded washrooms and HVAC systems. Officials say the work will extend the service lives of these trains by 20 years and will support the expansion of the GO train network.
In the Middle East, the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is on hold. An Israeli cabinet meeting planned for today to approve the deal has been delayed. Israel is blaming Hamas, reportedly over a dispute involving the identities of several prisoners the group is demanding be released. Hamas says it remains committed to the truce announced yesterday after weeks of talks mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. It was scheduled to take effect on Sunday. Israel says it has negotiators in Doha to reach a solution. American envoys are also there working to resolve the last remaining dispute. Palestinian authorities said Israeli airstrikes overnight killed 77 people in the Gaza Strip. And CTV's Scott Hurst is following this story for us. Scott, what is the very latest on this ceasefire deal?
Nathan, there's no question that this is a significant breakthrough. The sides and the parties involved in trying to broker this deal haven't been this close to a ceasefire since very early on in this conflict. There was a short temporary ceasefire, and this deal, however, as you laid out, is still incredibly fragile at this time and ultimately remains in limbo despite the cautious optimism from many groups involved in the negotiating process. So as it stands right now, as you mentioned, Israel has delayed this cabinet vote on the ceasefire deal, blaming Hamas for reneging on parts of the agreement, claiming Hamas has inserted some last-minute demands, and also Benjamin Netanyahu facing pressure from the far-right coalition partners to ratify this deal. And this deal, as we lay out in this 3 stages, should begin on Monday if it is all approved. And here are some of the specifics of how it will work out. Phase 1 begins with a 6-week ceasefire, which will see dozens of hostages exchanged for Palestinian prisoners. Israeli troops would pull out of populated areas, allowing displaced Gazans in the south to return to the north, and it would see humanitarian aid significantly ramp up. Now, the specifics of the next two phases, phases 2 and 3, would be negotiated during the initial pause, but it would include more hostages exchanged for Palestinian prisoners, a full withdrawal of Israeli troops, and then eventually, as part of Phase 3, it would mean the return of any final remains to Israel and a reconstruction plan for Gaza. Now, despite the fact that this does remain in limbo, here's more from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on his expectation that this deal should be implemented by Sunday.
Over 15 months of devastating conflict between Israel and Hamas, we've worked to broker a deal that would bring hostages home, that would stop the fighting, that would surge humanitarian aid to people who so desperately need it, that would create the space to conclude a permanent ceasefire. We now have that, and we expect implementation of the agreement to begin on Sunday.
So, Nathan, despite hearing from the parties involved in the negotiating process, as we both laid out, it remains in limbo right now, but it appears some of the key negotiators remain in Qatar to make sure that they can get this deal across the finish line.
That is the hope. And what has the reaction been in the Middle East and here at home?
Nathan, ultimately for the parties that have been involved in the negotiating process, these are the Qataris, the Egyptians, and the Americans. This would be the culmination of months of work that has really ramped up over the past couple of weeks and would wind down this 15-month war that was, of course, triggered by Hamas back in October 2023 and that brutal cross-border attack into Israel, which then saw Israel respond with a fierce offensive. So it is a ceasefire that many are watching closely around the world. It's being praised by many international partners like the U.S. and Canada, as well as humanitarian aid groups. For Palestinians and those in Canada who have roots in Gaza, the ceasefire means optimism. It could bring relief to the people, combined with the reality that Gaza is still facing a significant humanitarian crisis. For Israel and those who have connections to Israel, Israeli Canadians, the return of hostages has been a key demand in any talks to wind down this war. But at this time, there is still a lot of questions of whether it can get across the finish line. So cautious optimism for many groups worldwide, Nathan.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst with the latest on the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
In California, firefighters are hoping to continue making progress against two major wildfires in the Los Angeles area. Wind gusts and dry conditions will linger throughout the day, but officials say the winds are expected to switch to a more onshore flow, bringing higher humidity and less chaotic wind conditions, and that should help mitigate the wildfire threat compared to recent days. Extreme wildfire danger warnings are no longer in effect across the area, but one is still up for east of the metro area.
Here in Canada, another Liberal leadership hopeful is expected to make it official. Mark Carney will announce his candidacy this afternoon in Edmonton, the city where he grew up. The former Bank of Canada governor is expected to portray himself as an outsider in the Trudeau government. The cutoff date to declare a bid for the leadership is January 23rd, and candidates have to pay a $350,000 entrance fee. The party will elect a new leader on March 9th.
In Washington, Joe Biden delivered his farewell speech to the American people last night.
After 50 years of public service, I give you my word. I still believe in the idea for which this nation stands. A nation where the strength of our institutions and the character of our people matter and must endure.
During a 15-minute address, the U.S. president offered a model for a peaceful transfer of power at the White House. He also delivered stark warnings about an oligarchy of the ultra-wealthy taking root in the country and a tech-industrial complex infringing on Americans' rights and the future of democracy.
Blue Origin has launched its massive new rocket on its first test flight. Today's liftoff from Florida carried an experiment meant to orbit thousands of kilometers above Earth. The test satellite successfully reached orbit 13 minutes into the flight. The new Glenn rocket is designed to haul spacecraft and eventually astronauts to orbit, and also the moon. Blue Origin's been launching customers to the edge of space since 2021. Meanwhile, one of NASA's two stuck astronauts is getting a change of scenery. Suni Williams stepped onto a spacewalk today, her first since arriving at the International Space Station 7 months ago. She's tackling outdoor repair work alongside NASA's Nick Hague. Plans call for her to float back out next week with Butch Wilmore. He's the other astronaut launched aboard Boeing's new Starliner capsule last June.
So we've still got some flurries out there this hour, and if you're going to be doing some traveling this afternoon, you'll want to be aware of that. Heading into the evening, it looks like some of this snow is going to taper off, so that's good news. But another round of active weather is going to move in this weekend. So a trace to maybe a couple of centimeters of snow today, some snow and maybe some rain as we make our way into Saturday, and then the polar vortex returns starting Sunday. We'll talk all about it in your 7-day forecast. That's coming up after this break here on CTV News.
Well, wintry conditions this hour. Some flurries are flying.
Yeah, good point about the windshield washer fluid. Mine seems to run out every like 2-3 days.
I know. You got to just keep the garage stocked as much as you possibly can. It looks like a bit of a snow globe out there right now in downtown. It's quite pretty if you don't have to be driving in it, but I know many do. And so if you're heading out this afternoon, just be aware this is a weak system. It's not one of those big juicy ones that's going to bring a whole lot of snow to the GTA. But as we know, it doesn't take much to sometimes make for some slippery conditions or reduced visibility. Here's a look at what you need to know for the rest of the day and the weekend ahead. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. So it's a little bit of snow for us today. For our friends in other parts of the province, though, this has been an ongoing weather story. What you're seeing here is video from London, Ontario yesterday, where some of that lake effect snow once again blanketed sidewalks, made a mess of roadways. Look at those snowbanks. It really does give you a good idea of just how intense the lake effect snow has been in other parts of our province. We are getting a little bit of lake enhancement today off of Lake Ontario also. Winter weather travel advisories are in place. So a heads up if you're joining us from Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, over toward the Grimsby area. And then for Durham region, eastward and especially east of Oshawa, it looks like anywhere from 5 to 10 centimeters of snow could fall today. And then in the traditional snowbelt areas closer to Lake Huron as well as Georgian Bay, once again, measurable snow in store for you. Now, I was noticing on the satellite and radar one of those little snow squall bands. And again, winds are coming from a slightly different direction today. So that's influencing who gets a little more in the way of snow today compared to others. Maybe a trace to 2 centimeters of snow in and around the city of Toronto today. And the winds, not only are they going to start to tap into more of a southwesterly flow and southerly flow in the coming days, but they're going to strengthen. And that is going to contribute to our warm up, which is coming starting tomorrow. And we're really going to be feeling it by the time we reach Saturday. Here's this evening. So again, a lot of this is going to taper off as the day goes on. Overnight, just a chance of flurries. Friday is a drier day. I'm hopeful that we will get some sunny breaks, but it does look like it's going to be mostly cloudy in most areas. Now, let's talk about Saturday. Again, temperatures are rising. Winds are strengthening out of the south. We've got this disturbance and this cold front moving through. With this, we are going to expect some snow. Some areas are going to get rain because at this point, Saturday morning, the temperature could be around 2-3 degrees, and that's on the plus side, above freezing. That weather is going to quickly move out, but as the cold air starts to filter in behind it, depending on how quickly the temperatures fall, we could be dealing with a bit of a flash freeze situation. So keep this in mind for any plans on Saturday. Then the cold really settles in for Sunday. Not so cold today. It's funny how relativity works. -4 degrees for the high, wind chill -10. Tonight, not dropping all that much. -6 is our forecast low. That's a nice change from the last few days. And then here's tomorrow at a glance. I do think it's going to take until the end of the day for us to reach some of these forecast daytime highs. So a little bit cooler in the afternoon, but once again, expecting that temperature is going to climb above freezing. It will be short-lived, however. What you see here, see this very dark color? That's the polar vortex. It always exists in the Arctic. It's extending southward, going to be impacting not only us here in the province of Ontario, but really right across the continent and all the way to the shores of the Gulf of Mexico. Here's your 7-day forecast. We notice the temperature difference as early as Saturday night, more certainly into the day on Sunday, mix of sun and cloud in store. And then still we're looking at daytime highs in the minus double digits. It's been almost 2 years since that's happened here in the city of Toronto. Very cold Monday overnight and into Tuesday, starting to moderate on Wednesday, but you can plan on much of next week being below seasonal and certainly below freezing. That's your forecast for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, the countdown is on to a staple of the city's cultural calendar during these colder months, Winterlicious. Reservations are now open for the celebration of Toronto's culinary scene. The event invites people to enjoy a three-course meal at a fixed price at some of the city's best restaurants. From January 31st through to February 13th, 220 eateries will offer Winterlicious menus with prices ranging from $20 to $55 for lunch and $55 to $75 for dinner. You'll also save on tax because of the ongoing tax holiday on prepared meals. You can find a list of participating restaurants on the city's website. Well, you see them at sporting events and public gatherings. Mascots represent teams, companies, and schools all over the world, and a Calgary company has made a name for itself making them over the past 2 decades.
CTV's Kevin Fleming takes us on a tour behind the scenes at the company.
He's the first person many clients turn to when they're looking for a mascot. And Mark Dekukotsi says business is great.
Our website really generates a lot of traffic. I haven't made a cold call in 20 years. It's been great. They just come to us.
At any given time, there are close to 60 projects on the go, and the Mascot company designs and hand makes everything in-house. The NHL's San Jose Sharks and NFL's Bears and Dolphins are some of its clients.
We've made mascots for people in Italy, AS Roma, the big soccer team in Rome, Italy, the Swiss national basketball team. We've gone as far as Egypt. I'm dealing with someone right now in Bolivia.
S.A. Arrow went to school to be a chemical engineer, but started here over a year ago.
I love working with my hands. Like, aside from like what I studied professionally, I like being able to create things. I love the arts part of it.
It's a small team, and they're able to make a costume in about a week. There's always a project on the go.
During the process, it's not, I won't say it's fun. It's not easy, but once you get the final products, you're like, wow, I did that. Yeah.
A finished costume weighs close to 8 kilograms and can last for 10 years. Safety and good visibility are key to making the head, and that's the responsibility of Jennifer M., who has 26 years of experience.
You're looking at the whole thing, but I always look at it from the inside out, so you're kind of going from the base and then what you're going to layer to make it. So I really do look at it from inside out rather than the outside in.
Dekukotsi says the same effort goes into making each mascot.
The nice thing about mascots is they never retire, they never graduate, they're never put on IR, and they never demand a trade. They're around forever.
Kevin Fleming, CTV News, Calgary.
Very true. Still ahead, a new report's painting a grim picture of the deadly impact the shortage of family doctors is having on Canadians. Details after the break.
Canadians in need of medical attention know whether it's a minor procedure or life-saving surgery. Getting that care can take months or even years.
And that wait can sometimes be deadly. A new report shows at least 15,000 Canadians died while waiting for treatment. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Across the country, thousands of Canadians are on some sort of medical wait list, be it for a new hip, an MRI, or life-saving surgery. And according to a study from 2nd Street and Alberta-based think tank, thousands of people are dying before getting the treatment they need.
I think really the numbers show that we have a system in crisis right across the country. And it's very sad because it doesn't have to be this way.
Between 2023 and 2024, at least 15,474 patients in Canada died while waiting for a range of surgeries, procedures, or scans, according to provincial data obtained by 2nd Street. The organization says the figure is likely much higher, as not all governments track data about waitlist deaths.
It was very frightening.
Melanie Leeson was diagnosed with peritoneal cancer 1 year ago. She waited months for a biopsy in British Columbia, far longer than the guidelines of 43 days.
And here I am at 111, untreated and getting worse by the day. So I fled to the States.
According to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, more surgeries are being performed, bouncing back after a significant dip during the pandemic, but wait times are still long.
Time is everything. Delayed diagnosis means much, much lower likelihood of an accurate diagnosis being made and of acceptable treatment being rendered.
Second Street says Canada should adopt models similar to those being used in Europe, such as tying funding to timely procedures. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
We take you live to the Mississauga Board of Trade this hour, where Premier Doug Ford is speaking. Let's listen in.
Boy, adding to the PC team, so she'll be back up and running. I also want to acknowledge Mayor Parrish as well. I absolutely love the mayor. We hit it off right away, and I have to tell you, it's so nice to be able to say I love the mayor of Mississauga. I couldn't help myself. But the mayor, you know something. The mayor brought me by a present, and when people come by, they have a couple options. Either come to the big fancy office at Queen's Park, or come to my little humble little solarium that's about that wide and about 30 feet, and we have a wood-burning stove. So the mayor's come over a few times and came over with George, and George was out there chopping wood for my little wood-burning stove. She came by and gave me a present, and she said, "This is going to help you chop the tariffs." So I'm going to see. I told her I don't know. I think I know what it is, but I'm going to see what it is. Oh, this is beautiful, Mayor. An axe. Boy, I tell you, it's beautiful. Thank you. That means you and George have to come over this weekend. We have some wood to chop. And also the great mayor from Burlington, Marianne, where are you? Thank you for everything you do for the folks of Burlington, and a big thank you to all the city councilors and all the elected officials here. I always tell the city councilors, I walked a mile in your shoes. The only difference is Mayor Parrish isn't as tough on you as my brother Rob was on me. So he was a tough boss to be working with. And a big thank you to Trevor. Trevor, absolute champion, has done an incredible job, and the board of directors and all the members for inviting me to speak today. The Mississauga Board of Trade plays such an important role in supporting the region's businesses and entrepreneurs, and I want to thank you all for doing what you do. Today, given that we're just a few days away from a new administration in the White House, I want to start by addressing the issue that's on every person's mind in our entire country right now. The very real threat of a 25% tariff on Canadian goods entering into the United States. Everyone in this room knows about the devastating impacts that these tariffs would have on both of our economies. And I'll tell you folks, we just got off a cabinet meeting, and a few days ago they briefed me on the impacts. This is serious. This can affect anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 people. So we're doing everything we can and affect many of the businesses right in this room, and could cost Ontario hundreds of thousands of jobs, as I mentioned. This is not something we can take lightly, and we're not. Last week, I went with all the premiers, and yesterday I met with them again, along with the Prime Minister in Ottawa, to continue pressing the federal government to do everything humanly possible to avoid U.S. tariffs. We agreed on the need to stand united, to take a Team Canada approach that builds on the strong relationships we have with our American friends while standing up for Canadian workers in every part of our country. As we prepare for the incoming administration, Ontario is doing our part. Over the last several months, we've met and spoken with business leaders from both sides of the border and lawmakers representing every corner of the U.S., including senators and congresspeople and governors. Literally every day they have 3 or 4 scheduled to meet, which I'm doing again after we talk here. We'll talk to a couple governors who are set to be in the cabinet secretaries down in the U.S. and advisors in the incoming U.S. administration. In these conversations, I've stood up for Ontario close economic partnership with the U.S. and pointed out the balanced, integrated two-way trade system that equally benefits both of our countries. And I think it was you, Trevor, when I heard you speaking about the trade we have. We do approximately $500 billion of trade. Yes, we are the #1 export destination to 17 states, #2 to 11 other states. As a country, we're the #1 export destination to 28 states across the country. But we're a great trading partner, and so are they. They are. At no point has any American I've ever spoken to claimed that Canadian businesses or trade with Canada is the problem. Not Republican, not Democrat, never a harsh word about Canada or the trade. Instead, I've heard significant concerns about how China is ripping off American workers and the need to get serious about fighting back. Canada can help. Over the past few weeks, you may have heard me talking about Fortress AMCAN, a renewed alliance between America and Canada that can be a beacon of stability, security, and long-term economic growth on both sides of the border. Fortress AMCAN would be a true partnership, one that respects each country as proudly independent, with alignment on shared priorities: free, fair, balanced trade, accelerated resource development, stronger border security and energy security to power economic growth on both sides of our border. That includes making use of Ontario's abundant critical minerals. We have more critical minerals than anywhere in the world, and we're going to make sure that we get those critical minerals out of the ground as quickly as possible. And our incredible reserves of energy, including energy produced right here in Ontario, to reduce Americans' reliance on China and other bad actors across the globe. You know, we're leaders in nuclear power. And if you think of it, there's, I think it's 18 CANDU reactors. We have 17 here in Ontario. We're building on that, but I understand we're going to talk about that later on, Trevor, so I'll hold my comments until we get to that topic. A critical component.
You're listening to Premier Doug Ford with a familiar message for the Mississauga Board of Trade. He has been on a mission warning of the Trump tariffs that are looming for his government. They've really taken the stance that it's not a matter of if, that they are coming and they need to be prepared for it. Once again, warning that it could cost up to 500,000 Canadian jobs. And the Premier's point is that Ontario is set to be the hardest hit because of just how much trade we do with the United States. We're going to leave it here. We will monitor this event here at the Board of Trade, and we'll have more for you a little later today. But for now, we'll take a quick break. More news when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre held a news conference in Delta, BC a short time ago, announcing new tax cuts if his party is elected.
Common sense Conservatives are announcing today that under a Pierre Poilievre-led government, I will axe the Liberal jobs tax and reverse the capital gains hike that Chrystia Freeland announced last spring. We will bring down taxes. In fact, I will bring in, it's going to be called the Bring It Home tax cut. It will reduce taxes on work, investment, making stuff, building homes, and energy so that we can bring home more powerful paychecks and production to Canada.
Poilievre says he is responding to a capital gains tax hike introduced in the budget last year. He says the Liberal increase means 66% of investment gains will be taxed. Poilievre also vowed today to cut subsidies to large corporations.
A new report shows 2024 was a dismal year for new condo sales across the GTHA. The number of transactions involving new condo units in Toronto fell 64% last year compared to 2023. Real estate analytics firm Urban Nation says the approximately 4,600 sales made for the slowest year on that front since 1996. Focusing just on the last quarter of 2024, around 800 new condos sold, less than any fourth quarter since 1993. The report cited a drop in investors as a major factor in the slowdown. It warned that lagging condo pre-sales will cripple construction starts this year. Meanwhile, prospective homeowners don't expect it to get any easier or cheaper to buy a home anytime soon. That's according to recent polling from the Ontario Real Estate Association. Among 2,000 respondents, the survey found more than half expect housing prices to increase this year. Nearly half of those aspiring homeowners have either given up or are pessimistic about the possibility of ever achieving that goal. Many see high development charges as a big obstacle to getting more homes built, with three-quarters strongly supporting reducing municipal development charges.
When a death happens, it's often a stressful time, organizing a funeral, buying flowers, and writing the obituary.
One family was shocked when their loved one's obituary was reposted on another website where a company asked for donations for in memoriam gifts. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
He loved his vacation.
It was a difficult holiday season for the Ross family of Scarborough. Paul Ross died on December 23rd, right before he and his wife Chandra were to celebrate their 30th wedding anniversary.
He worked right up until the day before he passed away, so it was really a shock to all of our family and friends.
Ioma De Silva says her stepfather's obituary was posted with the funeral home they used, but later they became concerned when they discovered family members made donations in his memory, but there was no record of it on the funeral home's website.
We looked at the funeral home website, which is the only place that we authorized his obituary to be posted, and there was nothing there.
De Silva says that's when she discovered Paul's obituary had been reposted on a website called Ecovita. The website accepts donations to plant trees and light candles.
I felt it was a huge violation. It was my stepfather's information that we find very sacred, and I didn't think anyone had the right to publish his information without our consent and approval.
When De Silva contacted the website, Paul's obituary was taken down, but she found other obituaries on the site of other families she knew.
Most people don't know it's happening.
When CTV News reached out to Ecovita, a spokesperson told us, our mission is to make public information more easily accessible, free of charge. We comply with all Canadian laws and have all the necessary authorizations to operate in Canada.
There are companies out there who continue to make money by reposting obituaries without the permission or even the knowledge of grieving families.
The Bereavement Authority of Ontario says there are companies that cut and paste obituaries onto their websites. In 2019, a company called Afterlife was ordered to pay $20 million in a class action lawsuit for being in breach of copyright laws. Ecovita insists it's making obituaries available to inform the public. The authority says if you're making donations, make sure you know where your money is going.
We ask that you verify the source of the obituary, check that website, call your local funeral home, make sure it's the real thing.
Technically, they're not breaking any laws. They are sharing confidential information without consent of the family.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
The Raptors were looking for a second straight win when they took on the Boston Celtics last night.
Letting the clock work. Scotty down the lane. Jakob Poeltl on the scene. Offensive rebound, put back.
The Celtics led after the first quarter, but it was all Toronto. After that, the Raps were able to come back and win the game 110-97. The team is back on the court tomorrow to play the Milwaukee Bucks.
Toronto Maple Leaf forward John Tavares has been placed on injured reserve after falling awkwardly during practice yesterday. Fraser Minton's been called up from the Marlies. The Leafs will look to end their losing streak when they host the New Jersey Devils tonight.
In comes Marner, drops it up to Matthews, shoots, scores!
Toronto fell to the Dallas Stars 4-1 in a tough loss on Tuesday. The Leafs scored first, but the Stars went on to net 4 unanswered goals. It was the Leafs' third loss in a row. Puck drop at Scotiabank Arena tonight is at 7 o'clock. And fans will get a chance to watch the Leafs practice for free when the team hosts its annual outdoor practice later this month. The practice on Monday, January 27th, caps off a weekend of events that also includes a Leafs alumni game Sunday and viewing parties for the Scepters and Leaf games Saturday. After taking over Nathan Phillips Square last year, the event moves to Prince of Wales Rink in Mimico this year. There will also be complimentary skate rentals. Cool. Always a fun event.
Always. And if you're out skating right now, the flakes are flying. Lindsay says there's a burst of snow. What do we need to know?
There is. I bet it's pretty on the skating rink right now, but if you're on the roads, well, it's maybe less so. A burst of snow happening, especially for the west end of downtown Toronto right now. Here's one more look at the satellite and radar. You can tell by that darker blue that the snow is a little bit heavier. Winter weather travel advisories remain in place. It's worth mentioning that it is now ended from Pickering to Oshawa, but a travel advisory has been added for the Collingwood and Barrie area. Here's overnight at a glance. Not going to fall all that much as far as the temperature is concerned, -6 degrees. Tomorrow, eventually, maybe late in the day, we make it to a high of 2. That's the beginning of a rather interesting weekend weather forecast. We begin very warm. We're going to end the weekend very cold. Nathan and Michelle.
Got that right. All right, thanks, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.